Hello and welcome. My name's Philip and today I'm going to be introducing a cosmological concept that informs almost every aspect of medieval life. It's got a lot of different names, but the one that I'll be using is the chain of being. And it may seem a bit outlandish at first, but once you've got your head around it, you'll start to notice that it turns up again and again. And it's essentially the basis of the medieval worldview. I've been a medieval reenactor for just over 10 years now. One of the things that I really love about reenactment is the way that we can engage with the past in a really hands-on, visceral, immediate way. Now you can ask any reenactor, and one of the things they'll probably tell you that they love about reenactment is being able to inhabit a character or a persona, and through interactions with the audience, highlight the differences between people of today and those of the medieval world. Some of those differences are obvious, such as what people wear or perhaps how they speak. Some are a bit more subtle, how they move and how they interact. But perhaps the most subtle of all is how people think. That's what I'm going to be discussing in this series of videos. I'm hoping to explain what exactly the chain of being is and how we can see it at work in the medieval world. And we're going to be covering a lot of topics, from feudalism to food, music to magic, and holidays to history. Now, I'm not going to lie, it might get pretty intense. There is a lot to cover and not all of it is nice. But hopefully you will find it all educational and entertaining. And with that being said, let's dive right in. Welcome to the chain of being. So, let's begin at the beginning. And by that I mean the very, very beginning, at least to a medieval mind. The creation of the universe by God as recounted in the biblical book of Genesis. Now, in this book, God creates the physical universe in a particular order, starting with the heavens and the primordial earth, and culminating in the creation of man. He does this over the course of 6 days, and on the 7th day he rests. Importantly, after creating each thing, he declares that it is good. And we'll come back to that word later. Nowadays, people tend to understand Genesis as an allegorical myth from ancient times. It's not meant to be taken literally, but it does have some very important messages which are still relevant to people today. And the people in the medieval period were no fools. They understood allegory like nobody's business. In fact, there is a great deal of medieval academia that just deals with understanding the allegorical importance of scripture. Now, I don't want to add to the myth that everyone in the medieval period was an uneducated literalist. However, with that being said, access to formal education was very limited, and outside of major cities, literacy rates were quite low. For a lot of people, the Bible may have been the only book that they had ever seen, being read to them in Latin in church on Sundays. And because of that, we need to understand that this gives the Bible a sort of authority that is hard to ignore. Even the formally educated graduates of medieval universities who had been trained in theology still had that core belief that the Bible was fundamentally true. And this gives the book of Genesis another meaning which is often overlooked today. And it all comes back to that key phrase repeated several times, and it was good. You see, to the medieval mind, the story of Genesis is that of God creating a distinct order and hierarchy to the universe. An order which is good. Now, I don't mean good as in it's quite nice. Good as a moral imperative. It is the correct order. It is the divinely ordained structure. Anything that upsets that order is not good. It is chaos. It is evil. And that is the crux of the idea of the chain of being as a cosmological concept. The belief that there is a divinely mandated structure to the entire universe. And not just God, angels, men, animals, and then Satan down at the bottom, but every single individual facet of existence. There is a place for everything, a role and a purpose, and deviation from the order will bring about ruin. Now, back in Genesis, this is represented by the fall of man and expulsion from Eden. Eve, the first woman, was coerced by the serpent, who was probably Satan, into disobeying God and eating the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge. She shares it with Adam, and then they lie to God about what they did. And so they can't live in paradise anymore. Allegorically, Adam and Eve's transgression upsets the harmony of the universe and brings about discord and chaos. This idea of a hierarchical universe with discrete roles and purposes for each individual thing informs so much medieval thought. Over the course of this series, I'm going to discuss how it fits into feudalism, the somewhat infamous political structures of medieval Europe. We're also going to look at the medieval sense of identity, how people understood themselves and their place in the world and their place in their own history. We'll explore the medieval relationship with nature, where science, food, and magic all start to overlap. We'll explore medieval music and their madcap celebrations. Finally, I want to look back on the chain of being from a modern perspective. For all the philosophy, at the end of the day, was it just a tool of oppression? Or was it something a bit more? Well, I suppose we're going to find out together. But until then, thanks for watching, and farewell. Hey everyone, thanks again so much for watching our first video in our new series about the chain of being. We're hoping to do about 5 or 6 videos in this series covering a lot of different topics, but don't worry, we will still be interspersing them with our usual content as well. If you have enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell. And we're going to be covering a lot of different topics, from feudalism to food, music to magic, holidays to something else beginning with H. And I've forgotten.
Homicide!
Homicide! And we're going to be covering a lot of different topics, from feudalism to food, music to magic, history to... I've forgotten the other thing now.